and welcome to Story Time with Miss Laurel. Today, I'm going to read you a story about Squirrel Nutkin. That's right, Squirrel Nutkin. Isn't that a wild name? It's again from our Treasury of Stories by Beatrix Potter that we've been enjoying so well. And without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. This is a tale about a tale that belonged to a little red squirrel named Nutkin. Squirrel Nutkin had a brother called Twinkleberry. He had a great many cousins, too. They all lived in the woods at the edge of a lake. In the middle of the lake was an island covered with trees and nut bushes. Among the trees stood a hollow oak tree. It was the house of an owl called Old Brown. One autumn day, when the nuts were ripe and the leaves on the edges of the bushes were golden, Nutkin, Twinkleberry, and all the other squirrels went to the edge of the lake. They made little rafts out of twigs, and they paddled over the water to Owl Island to gather nuts. Each squirrel had a little sack and a little oar, and they spread their tails for sails. Take a look at that. That's pretty genius, huh? Especially for squirrels. They also took with them 3 fat mice as a present for Old Brown. The squirrels put the mice on his doorstep. Twinkleberry and the other little squirrels bowed and said politely, "Old Mr. Brown, may we please have your permission to gather nuts on your island?" But Nutkin's manners were very rude. He bounced up and down like a red little cherry, singing, riddle me, rat-tat-tote, a wee little man in a red, red coat, a staff in his hand and a stone in his throat. If you tell me this riddle, I'll give you a groat." Now, Mr. Brown was not at all interested in a groat, which is a coin. He paid no attention to Nutkin. He shut his eyes and went to sleep. The squirrels left Mr. Brown and filled their sacks with nuts, and they all sailed home in the evening. Take a look at old Mr. Brown there. The next morning, the squirrels returned to the island with a fat mole for Old Brown. They laid it in the owl's doorway and asked, "Mr. Brown, may we gather more nuts?" But Nutkin, who had no respect, began to tickle the sleeping Mr. Brown with a twig. Mr. Brown woke up suddenly and carried the mole into his house, and he shut the door in Nutkin's face. Soon a little thread of blue smoke from a wood fire came up from the top of a tree. Nutkin peeked through the keyhole and sang, "A house full, a hole full, and you cannot gather a bowl full." But the squirrels gathered nuts from all over the island, and Nutkin gathered crab apples and sat on a stump watching the door of Old Brown. Look at him peeking in there. What a nosy little Nutkin. On the third day, the squirrels went fishing very early. They caught 7 fat minnows for Old Brown and paddled over the lake to Owl Island. Twinkleberry and 6 other squirrels each carried a minnow, but Nutkin, who did not have nice manners, brought no present at all. He ran in front singing, "The man in the wilderness said to me, 'How many strawberries grow in the sea?' I answered him as I thought good, 'As many red herrings as grow in the wood.'" But Mr. Brown was not interested in riddles, not even when the answer was given to him. The squirrels filled their sacks with nuts, but Nutkin played a bowling game with crab apples and pine cones. There's the squirrels out fishing on their rafts. On the 4th day, the squirrels went to Owl Island for the last time. They brought an egg as a goodbye present for Old Brown. But Nutkin ran in front, laughing and shouting, "Humpty Dumpty lies in the beck, with a white counterpane round his neck. 40 doctors and 40 wrights cannot put Humpty Dumpty to rights." Now, Mr. Brown liked eggs. He opened one eye and he shut it again, but he still did not speak. There's old Mr. Brown getting ready to get his egg. I like eggs. Do you like eggs? Then Nutkin became very rude. It was already pretty rude. Old Mr. B, old Mr. B, hickamore, hackamore, on the king's kitchen door. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't drive hickamore, hackamore off the king's kitchen door. Nutkin danced about like a sunbeam, but still Old Brown said nothing at all. There's Nutkin dancing around. He's asking for some trouble. Nutkin took a running jump right onto the head of Mr. Brown. Look at that. Can you believe that? What was he thinking? All at once, there was a fluttering and a scuffling and a loud squeak. The other squirrels scampered away into the bushes, and when they came back, very cautiously peeking around the tree, there was Old Brown sitting on his doorstep. He sat quite still, his eyes closed as if nothing had happened. But Nutkin was in his coat pocket. This looks like the end of the story, but it isn't. Old Brown carried Nutkin into his house and he held him up by the tail, intending to eat him. But Nutkin struggled so hard that his tail broke in two. He dashed up the stairs and escaped out of the attic window. Look at that. Oh, he's got a short little tail. And to this day, if you meet Squirrel Nutkin and ask him a riddle, he will throw sticks at you, stamp his feet, scold, and shout, and that is the tale of Squirrel Nutkin. And even though you probably don't have a tail that an owl's going to snip off into, I think we can probably all take a little lesson from that about being irritating on purpose and rude to our moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and guardians and aunts and uncles. And you know what? Even our brothers and sisters. Oh, I'm just going to slip that one in there. You get a lot farther by being nice. Thank you guys so much for joining us for Storytime with Miss Laurel. I hope I see you next time. Bye-bye.